right, welcome back to JNA Sports Talk for episode 2. I'm Jacob Gacke, of course, alongside Alex Lynn, and we're excited again to record another episode. We're going to dive right in to talk about the U.S. women's national team as they're competing this Sunday in the World Cup final against Netherlands. There lots of controversy behind this team. Regarding their game against Thailand and Alex Morgan's celebration in the semifinals against England, where she celebrated her goal by sipping a teacup. We're going to talk about thoughts on it. Alex, how about you start us off? What are your thoughts about how the U.S. women's national team has conducted themselves throughout the World Cup?
I mean, personally, I understand a lot of people have an issue with it, and I can say that I understand. I think my main issue would be that the constant celebration when you're beating a team by 13 goals, you could kind of just walk it off, celebrate with your teammates a little bit, but they really went as far as they could with each celebration. However, the two things where I think they're being incorrectly scrutinized is, one, how many goals they put up against Thailand, where people are complaining that they just kept trying. And one thing that Alex Morgan said, who's obviously the star forward, which I think is very accurate, is it's almost insulting to not try your hardest and to let up, because it almost shows like you're playing an easier opponent, and they just kept playing their hardest, which I think is almost a sign of respect. And when it comes to the teacup celebration, I don't really see an issue with it. I mean, she went as far to say that, like, the male people in sports, male athletes are doing these kind of crazy celebrations and they don't get anything, any scrutiny, but the women are, which I don't really think it's gender related, but I do think that it was perfectly fine. She's just enjoying the moment. It was a goal that, almost won them the semifinal game of the World Cup, and I really don't think there was a need for scrutiny.
No, I agree. I don't think Alex Morgan's celebration crossed the line anyway. You can flip on any men's game and you'll see far worse. Where I do have a problem with this team is in their game against Thailand. Not the fact that they ran up the score, it's the fact that they were celebrating each and every single goal like it was the first. Now, the only reason I have a problem with this is, as a child, no matter what sport you're playing, I played hockey growing up, and there'd be times where you'd definitely come up against a weaker team, and it'd be 9-10 nothing, and you'd keep scoring, and sometimes the coach would tell you to take the foot off the pedal, but if you celebrated that 10th goal when it was 10 nothing, you were getting benched, you were gonna get a talking to, and it's you don't want to humiliate the other team and mock them. And I think the way they conducted themselves was slightly inappropriate. And I get it, it's a World Cup, happened every 4 years. The number of goals I have no problem with, and like you said, it's important to always try your best. But the celebrating, that is something that makes the country look bad, and I definitely I can't support that.
I mean, I think we both agree that whether or not the celebrations are warranted or not, we both agree that they are really a fantastic team. And obviously, people discuss how they lost a game against U15, the FC Dallas team, 5-2, which you can take what you want from that. I mean, I've read that they just weren't as good, and you could talk about them just not being able to compete, or you could speak that they was just a scrimmage, they were just getting ready for the World Cup. So it's really to see any way you want it to, but I really personally think that we should really just embrace them as a good team, and really, no matter what they've done, we both agree again that they're a great team, and that hopefully they win the World Cup on Sunday, represent America. And, it's good for women's soccer, because it's not a sport that gets a ton of traction outside of the World Cup, and it's good for the sport.
No, it definitely is. U.S. They've won 3 World Cups, the women have, and over the times, and I wish them the best of luck on Sunday. Definitely a very polarizing team. With Megan Rapinoe refusing, to stand for the national anthem and being heavily criticized by the president, and it's definitely gained them some exposure, whether it's good publicity or bad publicity. It's hard to deny the fact that they've been making their mark on the global stage. So with that, I think we're going to dive right into the big news. Of course, NBA free agency. This morning around 2 a.m., Kawhi Leonard deciding to sign, a 4-year max contract with the LA Clippers, but he was not alone. As we know, as Paul George decided to join him with the Clippers, requesting a trade. I have many thoughts on this, but Alex, how about you give us your first initial thoughts about this?
I mean, for me, it's kind of, I honestly think it's good for the NBA. I'm personally not an avid NBA fan. I live in New York, so I root for the Knicks, but I don't watch really a ton of the games. So I was hoping for KD and Kyrie to come to New York, well, they did come to New York, but the wrong New York team. But really, I think it's more interesting with you because obviously, I don't know if you guys know because we haven't mentioned it, but Jacob here is a big Raptors fan. So obviously, for Raptors fans, they're very happy with their title, but how do you feel about Kawhi? Are you happy that he's going? Or are you sad because he left? Obviously, you're sad, but are you, let me phrase, are you happy for him? Or are you kind of mad that he didn't stay?
Well, I think it's like the famous phrase, like, don't be sad, it's over, be happy that it happened. And I'm definitely, it was an incredible ride, watching Kawhi put the seal on his back and just, although he did take, his 22 some odd games of rest, just an absolutely historic performance throughout the whole playoffs. It was a lot of fun to watch the Raptors this year, and I'm so glad I got to watch them, win the chip. But obviously it's very hard to see him go. I'm happy he didn't go to the Lakers, and I know it's not for me to say where he can go, but I think the league would have had a serious problem if he ended up going to the Lakers, and this putting him in the Clippers team, a perfect, really well managed team. Steve Ballmer owning it, one of the richest owners in sports, and Doc Rivers as the head coach. I'm really happy for Kawhi. He's going to a great organization. The West is wide open. Whether you want to say it's over, it's not. Lots of teams are contending there. The East, the East is still going to be wide open, but to go back to your question, it's very tough to see him leave. I wish him the best. I'm always going to be a fan, and I think the city of Toronto is always going to be, supportive. If he ever comes back, he's going to get a tribute video. They're going to be clapping him on. So hate to see him go, but I love to watch that playoff run.
And also to add on to what you were saying, where you're talking about the West being wide open, and we haven't really discussed as much, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But personally, I'm someone who doesn't necessarily acknowledge when teams are just better, where I really almost refuse to acknowledge that the Warriors were going to win the title just because I was just hoping for another team to have a chance because, again, not as an avid basketball watcher, I just want it to be interesting. I didn't want a 4-0 sweep, so obviously I was very happy with the NBA Finals this year. I think it's great for the sport to open up the West, and I think that people shouldn't sleep on the smaller market teams in the West because even though a team like the Clippers, it's a great team, right? And they're studs defensively. And the Lakers, obviously, today they've signed Rondo, they signed Cousins, they're loading up. But we can't forget about teams, in my opinion, like the Jazz and the Trailblazers, where these are teams, and maybe even the Rockets, obviously, you can't forget about them as long as they don't trade anyone, where these are teams where do I really think they're going to keep up with LA, Golden State? Probably not, but Portland now obviously has Hassan Whiteside to pair with Lillard and McCollum. They're a good team. It's a good trio. The Jazz were a good team. They've added a bunch of players on one-year contracts this year. And obviously, I don't personally think the Rockets will ever have it because, as Kobe said himself, their style of play really just doesn't fit the championship ways that you need to win. But I'm just curious what you think. Do you think that the Clippers, Lakers are definite favorites? Do you think there's any way that they don't win a title?
Well, I definitely think they're the front runners, both LA teams. And if I had to, bet my money, I'd pick one of those two teams without a doubt. But I think it's, very unfair to say that it's over and that one of these LA teams is going to win. I mean, the Utah Jazz had a great offseason. Absolutely fantastic. They done a really good job. They brought in Mike Conley, a really underrated guard. And obviously Donovan Mitchell's still very young, and they're gonna keep doing what they're doing. It's gonna be really exciting to watch this year, especially the Western Conference. The Rockets, I don't see them, being better than either LA teams or the Jazz.
They weren't before. They're definitely not gonna be better now, and especially you can't forget the Clippers' perimeter defense is gonna be insanely good. They pretty much have the three of the best perimeter defenders in the game with George, Leonard, and Pat Bev is a great defender. So I don't understand how a team like that just relies on chucking up threes is going to beat them. I don't think it's even possible.
Yeah, I don't. There's a lot of dysfunction going on there in Houston between Paul and Harden. Hopefully they figure it out. I mean, they're a good team, fun team to watch, but I don't think they're going to be able to compete with these higher level teams. You mentioned the Trailblazers. I don't know. They brought in Hassan Whiteside, someone who just emerged over the last couple seasons.
I mean, is there a chance that someone comes out of the East? I mean, it's tough to say because I would say your three best bets right now. I mean, personally, the Raptors are still a great team, but yeah, I think it's tough for them to compete with. I mean, we'll see, obviously, and we'll have to see how they play without Kawhi, but we'll have to see how also they match up against these new revamped teams in the East where you have the Celtics. Obviously, they added Kemba, they added Enes Kanter. I mean, they're kind of revamped. They're a good team. I really don't think they can compete with the teams in the West, but we'll see. And the 76ers, where really the only thing that's going to stop them is the three-point line because they don't have shooters. However, their starting five is really good on paper. So to say that they're not contenders is kind of silly, I feel, this early, to rule them out. So we'll have to see if anyone in the East can compete. And obviously, as you said, the East and the West are both wide open respectively. It's just the question is whether when we get to the finals, is whoever comes out of the West going to blow the team out of the East from the East out of the water? We don't know. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think the 76ers are going to be on the top of the East. Really good starting five there. Bringing in Al Horford and although they dumped Jimmy Butler to the Heat, they got a good return there with a decent 3-and-D player. I hope I hope that Ben Simmons can just keep developing and he can be a star one day, and if he can figure out his shooting. But that 76ers team I think is going to be the top, and the Bucks, they lost Malcolm Brogdon, but they did bring back Chris Middleton.
And they
got the other Lopez. Yeah, they got the other. They re-signed Brook Lopez and got his brother along with them, so that should be fun to watch. The Nets, you got to give them. I don't think this year they're gonna make a lot of noise, but hopefully, in the following season when KD comes back, they can be a really good team and hopefully contend and make it far in the playoffs. So yeah, I think.
So I think we're gonna move on a bit. We're gonna go back to, obviously, as you guys heard last time, we're big fantasy football fans, and we like to think we know our stuff. So today we just want to chat a little bit about the running back position. Obviously, the running back position is, I think in our opinion, the most important position for fantasy. It's really an opinion because we have friends who are wide receiver people. They want to draft wide receivers in the first round, but we both firmly believe that running back should be your first overall pick in most circumstances. So we just wanted to discuss and see. So to me, who do you think? Obviously, we know that Saquon, McCaffrey, Zeke, and Kamara in most leagues are going to be the top 4 picks. Right. So who do you think is the 5th pick?
If I had the 5th pick, I'd be either looking at Melvin Gordon or DJ David Johnson. I wouldn't be looking at Devontae Adams or Hopkins yet. If I have one of those top 5, top 6 picks, I'm looking to lock up my RB1. Those top 4, you never know if either Gordon or Johnson are gonna leapfrog one of Kamara, Elliott, McCaffrey, Barkley. But assuming that they don't, assuming that top 4 is gonna stay the same, I'm gonna probably go for Melvin Gordon. I like what he did last year. Just touchdown machine, PPR machine as well. Who would you go for, Alex?
I mean, I'm also going to have to agree and go Melvin Gordon. I think the only issue with Melvin Gordon is he has had knee problems in the past, and you can't ignore that because he has had knee injuries a lot, honestly, through his pro career. He missed, I think, almost 7 or 8 games one year. Last year, he missed a couple games, and it's something that's lingered for him. However, when he is on the field and he is healthy, he is someone that, as you said, is a PPR machine, catches tons of balls out of the backfield. He is targeted on, I think, one of the highest percentages of screens in the NFL. So that's obviously great for PPR leagues. And again, as you said, he's a touchdown machine. And I think that so much so where if you could guarantee Melvin Gordon would be healthy for 16 games, I would definitely think there would almost be an argument to pick him, maybe even over Alvin Kamara, which may have you wonder why, but I really just think it's because we don't know Alvin Kamara's workload. And I feel personally that he's going to be great this season. And we both know that he's a great player. But the question is, just because obviously Mark Ingram's now on the Ravens, does that mean that Alvin Kamara takes over all the work? I think that this ranking, putting him behind Zeke McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, is assuming that that he's going to take a full workhorse kind of role in this offense, and he's going to get 300 touches this season. Personally, I don't see it happening. I think that he played without Ingram, when Ingram was suspended for the first 4 games last year. And even then, right after, they rested him. They gave him like 6 touches the next game because they know that he's not a guy that needs to be running the ball 25 times a game and catching 10 times a game. He's a guy that is kind of, a change of pace guy. He's obviously the best, probably, or one of the best in the NFL. But people like to forget that Latavius Murray is now entering that offense. And people think that, Mark Ingram, Latavius Murray, big difference, it's different. And it is. And Latavius Murray will have less touches than Mark Ingram had, it's a given.
Yeah.
Because Mark Ingram was special for that offense. But the fact of the matter is that Latavius Murray is going to get touches. He's going to get carries. He may be that first down running back. And even if Kamara's on the field for second and third down, that production may not be as high as a Gordon or Johnson that's healthy for 16 games. They're the only running backs in their offense. I'm not going to say that Austin Eckler really has a chance to take any touches away. So I don't know. And my question to you would also be, so we both really agree that those top 5, 6 running backs are really set in stone. So once you get past them and you're down to the next one, then some of them I would read off for you would be Joe Mixon, James Conner, Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman, Dalvin Cook. Who do you take? Who do you like out of that group?
In my rankings, I had Joe Mixon at top of that, second tier, if you will. I'm really high and really bullish on Joe Mixon this year. I think he's going to get a lot of touches. Although the Bengals did have some unfortunate news, with their first round pick going down. He was going to miss the whole rest of the season. Jonah Williams. Obviously, I think that's more noise than news in the fantasy football world. But I expect a lot from Joe Mixon. Obviously, the quarterback situation there is, not great. But I would still have him ahead of someone like James Conner. And I know, Alex, you're not, too positive on James Conner. So would you agree with Joe Mixon being on the top?
I do. And in my running back rankings, my top 10, I have after Gordon and Johnson, who I have in that order, I have Joe Mixon, and then I have James Conner. And then I have Le'Veon Bell, which is something else that we should get to. Because Le'Veon Bell, obviously a favorite in drafts this year. We both, I think, believe that he's got a chance, but he's also got bust potential. For me, Mixon, he's a good back. That line, though, it scares me because they don't have a good line. Jonah Williams would have helped solidify it, and he's gone. I think that now, even though it's, as you said, a little more noise, I do think that you could definitely make an argument for taking James Conner over Joe Mixon. I mean, James Conner had a great year last year. He's got a great offensive line, and he's got really a better offense. But for me, Joe Mixon is really a stud. He's a great running back. I think the only issue with him is his weapons around. And for me, that's the same issue with Le'Veon Bell, where people think that he's Le'Veon Bell, and he's great. And he is. We have agreed that he's one of the best running backs in the league. He's really patient. He's a great receiver. But that was on the Steelers, where he was basically made into the offense. The offense was very well molded around him. Obviously, AB too, but Le'Veon was a huge part. And Le'Veon would get tons and tons of touches. I mean, that you get 10 receptions a game and 25 carries. And this was an offense where, that again, as we said, that offensive line is absolutely insane. It's one of the best in the league, if not the best. They're anchored by top right guard. They got a great team. So if you have a top running back running behind a top offensive line and then going to a team with a bad offensive line, such as the Jets, and not as good a quarterback in Sam Darnold, I think there's reason to be worried. I mean, do you think that Le'Veon Bell should be ahead of Joe Mixon and James Conner, or do you think that people are a little too high on him?
No, Le'Veon Bell had a phenomenal situation in Pittsburgh. Great line. You can look at his highlights from those past seasons, and his runs were just these holes that were bought from the offensive line were absolutely massive, and he was catching so many footballs, and he's in a very different situation now. And I definitely think you have that RB1 potential there with Le'Veon Bell, and if you're taking him, you're hoping he is going to be that RB1, workhorse back who's just going to get a lot of touches. And I definitely think he's going to get his fair share of touches. It's one of those like sponsorship things where they're paying him a lot of money. Although Adam Gase doesn't really agree with spending that much money on a running back, he is getting that money, and they're gonna have to use him. They can't just pay someone like that and not use him as much. The efficiency is definitely going to be down from his time in Pittsburgh, but I'm not willing to take him in front of a running back like Joe Mixon. Dalvin Cook's there in the mix as well as James Conner, but the other running backs around there are like Nick Chubb and Leonard Fournette, two backs that are going to see a lot of work. So for Le'Veon Bell, definitely expect the touches to be there, but do not expect the efficiency to be there. No.
And one thing for me that would not make Jet fans too happy, but I know it's true, and it's not something I necessarily agree with, but we've discussed is if you look at in-depth stats from Le'Veon's time with the Steelers, his stats such as yards per game, touchdowns per game, and obviously advanced metrics where it comes to a per game basis, he was actually lower or on the same exact pace, and in some cases much lower than other Pittsburgh starting running backs such as Jalen Samuels, James Conner, and for a little bit D'Angelo Williams. So this time that he was in Pittsburgh, you had running backs, again, D'Angelo Williams, a guy that was just kind of like almost a waiver wire guy in the actual NFL where he ran around. He was obviously in Carolina. He was really good. Went to Pittsburgh as a backup. He was a backup running back, nothing too special. And he was really good when he played for Pittsburgh in those few games. So and obviously, I don't think it's fair to say because these guys, let's say, X have 100 touches. And Le'Veon obviously was way, way higher in, over his seasons. And he kept up the productivity. Mm-hmm. So there's something to be said for that, but when you have a guy named D'Angelo Williams or Jalen Samuels, these guys that aren't workhorse running backs, and they have better yards per carry, yards per game, touchdowns per game, stats like these, it really makes you think about the impact of the offensive line in an offense.
Right, and that's a conversation brought up with other running backs in the league, with people comparing Zeke and Saquon and how, one line is much better than the other. So, it's definitely important to note that offensive lines still do matter in fantasy football, and without that line in Pittsburgh, Le'Veon definitely wouldn't have had that same success. And running backs like Dalvin Cook do not benefit from having fantastic offensive lines, but a lot of teams have put their focus on their line to develop a run game.
It's a good way to go, I think, these days.
Certainly. So switching gears now to actual football, I think we certain topics we want to get into, and one that Alex and I both feel very strongly about is the conversation comparing Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott. So Alex, how about you start us on that topic?
So as he said, we both care a lot. We're obviously both Cowboys fans, and we both have a lot of evidence where I feel where people who are not Cowboys fans look at Dak Prescott and they see the good offensive line. They see Zeke Elliott. They see Amari Cooper. They see a team that wins games, but they don't see it because of Dak Prescott. They see it because of his surroundings. And for this reason, people don't think he's worth the kind of money, like $34 million, that he's trying to get. Same kind of money that Carson Wentz got. Mm-hmm. However, both me and Jacob agree that we do think he's worth this kind of money, where maybe not he's worth it in a sense where he's that great of a player, but he's the quarterback, and it's a quarterback league now, and you need to sign your quarterback. And there is no other guy that the Cowboys are going to go out and get that's going to be better than Dak Prescott. And for anyone who is here and listening and saying that a quarterback, X and X are better than Dak Prescott, their quarterback's better than Dak Prescott. If you have a quarterback that's not on a rookie deal, right, these new rookies, and is better than Dak Prescott but is getting paid less, I don't think it's happening, because all these quarterbacks that are better than him are getting paid more than him. And the market's going to just keep going up. So in 2-3 years, this contract's going to probably be a bargain, just like Wentz's is, because the market's going to just keep going up. And people forget that Dak has, much more. He's got 14 game-winning drives. He's got 8 fourth-quarter comebacks compared to Wentz's 4 fourth-quarter comebacks and 4 game-winning drives. Dak's also got a postseason fourth-quarter comeback and game-winning drive against Seattle, where he had a great run on third down to get them across. He's a team leader. They love him in Dallas. He wins games. That is what matters. He wins games. He stays healthy. For me, obviously, we can go way in depth with this, but for me, he's worth it. What about you?
No, stats do say a lot, and although, we both watch these Cowboys games together and we see an unpolished quarterback, the wins are there. The second most winningest quarterback over the last 3 years is right behind Tom Brady, who is the best quarterback of all time, and we're not saying he's anything like Tom Brady, but we're saying, he's a winner. He's a leader in the locker room. These players can get behind a quarterback like that, and I think that's a conversation. When you're talking about Carson Wentz, I don't think these players, have the same connection with Carson Wentz like they did with Nick Foles. And it was reported this, at the beginning of this offseason that, players like Alshon Jeffrey and a player that, is departed now, but Michael Bennett, said there's some disconnect between, the players and Carson Wentz. And, it explains a lot why someone like his tight end Zach Ertz and rookie, tight end Dallas Goedert, why those kind of players were getting the ball so much. And I'm not taking anything away from those two tight ends, but I think there's a chemistry issue there in Philly that people aren't really putting a lot of light on. But it's a very important conversation. Where in Dallas, although there's been controversy over who gets the footballs, with Cole Beasley talking about how he thought it all comes from the front office where Dak should be throwing the ball. Players love him. The chemistry's there between every single layer of the Cowboys, and a new offensive coordinator who, we don't know how he's going to be. I'm a little skeptical over Kellen Moore, but we'll see this year. But if you're looking at the statistics and you're looking over the last few seasons, I don't think it's even a conversation with Dak versus Wentz. I think Dak deserves all the money that he's going to get.
And I think to add on to that is that we're not arguing here that Dak is a better quarterback. That argument definitely could be made. We don't, definitely could make that argument that he is better. But that's not what we're saying. We're saying that he is worth the money. Now, that is a completely different argument. Wentz, he's got talent, and we know that, and we watch him play twice a year, and he is a skilled quarterback.
He's been riddled with injuries,
right? But he's a great quarterback. We know that he was great coming out of college. But when you have a guy that doesn't play a lot, he's riddled with injuries, as you said. He is, because he hasn't played. Right. He had a back issue. He's had tons of issues over his NFL career. He's only played for 3 years. Right. I don't understand how you can make such a strong argument so convincingly that he's so much better than a countermate who has obviously swept the Eagles last year. Wentz did not play well last year. He just wasn't. We know that he was hurt, and obviously after that comes out, it does shine some light on maybe why he wasn't 100%. But the fact of the matter is that he was not 100%, but he also didn't play 100% because he wasn't playing well at all. I mean, we watched him play against Dallas, and he just straight up didn't play well. Dak outplayed him. We won both of those games. We were the team that went to the playoffs and obviously beat Seattle. They also went to the playoffs, but I mean, we both believe really Nick Foles had a lot to do with that. Obviously,
no, for sure.
Wentz won games, but Foles, the Super Bowl run, we both agree that Wentz was wonderful 2 years ago when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. He was insane. He was one of probably the best quarterback in the league that year before he unfortunately got hurt. I think he tore his ACL.
He did.
But the fact of the matter is that is not the same quarterback that just got paid $34 million. The same quarterback from 2016, Dak's rookie season, that went 13-3 with no major injuries, and now adding a playoff win, Amari Cooper, Randall Cobb, and an improved offensive line, that is the same player that we would be paying. And I personally think it's an easy argument. He deserves the money.
No, I completely agree. And now we're going to talk about a couple divisions that need some talking about in the NFL. Talking about the NFC South and AFC South and AFC East and South, pardon me. Alex, how about you talk about the South and who do you think is going to win and who do you think might disappoint in that division?
For me, I have the Colts coming out of the division. I think it's pretty obvious. The Texans are a good team. I think they could definitely be a wild card. They have a good quarterback, but as we're just talking about Carson Wentz, Watson has also been a bit injury prone. He's a great quarterback, but the injuries have kind of piled up a bit. We know that DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best in the league, but they've also lost guys. They lost Tyrann Mathieu last year. He signed with the Chiefs, and they're a great team, but I really don't think they can compete with this new Colts team. This is a Colts team that they're run by Chris Ballard, who's one of the best GMs in the league, if not the best. He made some great draft picks this year. He's made great draft picks in the past. Andrew Luck is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, undoubtedly. And they got one of the best offensive lines in football. And in my head, really, offensive line is really a way to success. So when you have a team with a great quarterback, as we know Luck is, a great offensive line, an improved wide receiver core, they got Marlon Mack, who should be pretty sturdy back there. We'll have to see how he handles a workhorse role. And they got a good defense. They spent a bunch of picks on defense. They got Ben Bagano out of TCU, defensive end. They had Darius Leonard, as we know from last year. They re-signed their best cornerback. I think they're a team to be reckoned with, and I think they should actually be considered a Super Bowl contender.
No, I agree. Just a fantastic football team on both sides of the ball. People might mention, Nick Foles is coming into that division. I don't really think that's going to have a huge impact. That's still a far from, elite team. And I think the Colts are going to fire you on all cylinders on offense. A couple backs there that can do damage, and the defense, we saw what they're able to do. Again, I don't know if there's much conversation in this division. And I would agree with the next division. There's not much conversation about it either. Although it's going to be fun to watch some young quarterbacks in the AFC East. But I think you have to go with the Patriots in that division. What do you think, Alex?
I mean, it's pretty obvious. Anyone that really watches football would probably agree that the Patriots are to put it nicely, front runners in that division. And almost to me, it's a shame where I almost feel bad for people that aren't Patriot fans in that division, because not only are they a dominant team, but the Patriots are a team that, as long as Bill Belichick's there running the show, they're going to be well set up even after Brady leaves. And even though they're going to have to find a quarterback, they've been grooming guys for a while. I think they'll find someone sooner than later to replace him when he leaves. And they have a good team. Aside from Tom Brady, who's obviously the GOAT, they have a good, solid team. They do every year. The defense never gets enough credit for what they do. They have one of the better pass secondaries. I mean, they got a really good secondary back there, and people don't give them any credit. Stephon Gilmore is one of the best corners in the league. So I think that it's, aside from being a good team now, I think they're going to be good even for years, even though they already obviously have been for years. And the Bills obviously have a long way to go rebuilding, long way. The Jets, they're getting there. They are getting a bit better, but they still have a long way to go too. And they got a couple front office problems, which is a little questionable. And the Dolphins are as far as anyone in the NFL from being a good team. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets made some noise in free agency, but they're still not going to come close to anything that the Patriots are going to be able to put up. And the Dolphins, new quarterback there, and Josh Rosen, but I heard Ryan Fitzpatrick was doing some work in the offseason training camp there. So that quarterback situation is still a little murky. Bills, Josh Allen had a great year last year, running the ball, he's got an absolute cannon, some very fast wide receiver. That's a very fast wide receiver core they got there in Buffalo, with John Brown coming in as well as Cole Beasley. But I think it's the Patriots division to lose, and I don't see them losing it this year. I think as long as Tom Brady's in that division, although who knows how long he's going to be there, I think it's their division. Now we're going to switch on to another sport in baseball, with the All-Star game coming up, and halfway through the season. Alex, what are some of your takeaways with some top teams like the Astros, the Dodgers, and the Yankees? What are your takeaways from teams like those?
I mean, it's a little quiet. It's a little different for me to speak on it because obviously I'm a Red Sox fan and they're not doing too well this year. But I do feel that it's pretty obvious that I really think the Astros and the Yankees are the best teams in the league this year. I think the Dodgers are really, really good, and I think that they have a great pitching staff. But I think that when it comes to October, I think a team with a great pitching staff like the Astros, right now they're running a little low because of injuries. They had Corbin Martin, who's a top prospect, who just had to go down with Tommy John. But that offense is ridiculous, and so is the Dodgers offense, obviously. But I think that Houston, obviously, they have playoff experience. I mean, everyone in that all these teams have playoff experience, but the Astros were world champs a couple years ago, and I really think it comes down to health, and almost the same thing with the Yankees. How good is a fully healthy Yankee team going to be when they get a fully healthy Aaron Judge, Luis Severino, Giancarlo Stanton? That lineup is going to be insane when it's all put together. And obviously, we know the Astros lineup. It's already been together. So when they get Springer back, which he's obviously just coming back right now, healthy, and they get this pitching staff fully healthy, they get their bullpen healthy, I mean, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. And obviously, all year, really for a while now, Altuve has not been 100%. Carlos Correa has not been 100%. He's got back issues, really bad back issues, and Altuve's got the bad knee. For me, it's pretty easy. With the Astros are just a really, really fascinating team. They're so good. I mean, I know you're a Yankee fan, so do you really honestly believe that the Yankees are the best team in the league right now?
I don't know if they're the best team in the league, but if you want to look at October, the postseason, teams with deep bullpens have proven success and that bullpen in the Bronx is just insane to think about. And that's still with someone like Don Betances still being on the IL and missing the ace and Luis Severino in the starting rotation. It's a team, lots of home runs, lots of strikeouts, and certain players need to click and do their job in order for the Yankees to be successful. I mean, the signing of DJ LeMahieu has proved dividends, as he's been an absolute monster at the plate. And but yeah, teams like the Astros, they also got a fantastic bullpen, and their offense, them and the Dodgers, I think, have the two best offenses in the league. I think it's going to come down. I think the Dodgers are going to come out of the NL. They might have some competition there, but I think they're going to come out of the NL, and I think it's going to become between the Astros and the Yankees in the AL. And I think at that point, it's going to be a very hard-fought series if they come up against each other. But of course, a little bias is going to come into this, but I would take the Yankees in a 7-game series against the Astros, as long as Luis Severino can come back and pitch to his normal self.
They'll probably have bullpen. I mean, I'm sorry, they'll probably have deadline acquisitions, which you can't forget about. Bumgarner, Stroman. It's almost destined that one of them will.
Yeah, one of them's probably gonna land in the Bronx. I'm thinking probably Stroman over Mad Bum, but that starting rotation needs to still needs to be doing their job. Eating up innings. We're talking about the postseason. That's all they really need to do is just get some solid innings and hand it over to the bullpen. Hopefully that bullpen can do their job and shut out these high offense teams. But next week is the All-Star game, and we're both very excited for that.
And as comes with it, obviously every year is our favorite, the Home Run Derby. And real quick before we finish up, we just want to take you through the Home Run Derby bracket and give you our picks and who we think is gonna take away. And obviously this year they've upped the prize, as we were just discussing, to $1 million, which actually gives the players something to care about, which to me makes it a lot more entertaining, because when you see, let's say, Christian Yelich out there, he's gonna be trying. He
has nothing to prove.
And $1 million obviously is chump change for a lot of these guys, and we know that. But you also can't discredit that they do know $1 million is $1 million. So I want to get your opinion. So with our first matchup, who do you think is gonna win? Christian Yelich versus the young guy Vlad Guerrero.
Maybe this might be a shock. I'm gonna take Vlad Guerrero. I don't think Christian Yelich is this home run derby king. Vlad Guerrero has proved that he can absolutely destroy the ball, and I think he's gonna flourish under the spotlight. And Christian Yelich, he doesn't have really anything to prove. He doesn't have the chip on his shoulder that Vlad Guerrero Jr. might have, or hasn't been as spectacular as people might thought he is, but
and people aren't happy that he's in. No runs. People are pissed, to say it nicely.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Vlad. How about yourself, Alex?
I would also go with Vlad, which may seem kind of interesting, because Yelich is they're actually seeded this year, which is kind of interesting, and I'm not sure how they are seeded. It may be by amount of home runs.
It might be.
I think that actually is what it is. I'm looking. Actually, no, maybe we'll see, but I think that Vlad Guerrero has obviously so much power. It's absolutely insane. We watch him in batting practice. And not to say that Yelich won't try, but as you really said it pretty well, he doesn't have anything to prove. He's the MVP. He'll probably be MVP this year too, honestly, if he keeps up the pace he's playing. Obviously, him versus Bellinger, that's a whole nother argument. But I think Vlad's going to put on a show for the fans. And that would bring us to our next matchup, would be the winner. So we have Vlad Guerrero moving on here. And he would play the winner of Alex Bregman and Jock Peterson. So this one's a kind of interesting matchup. These were the two last admits into the Home Run Derby. So who do you have winning this matchup?
I'm going to go with Bregman. Jock Peterson has proven that he can, hit a lot of home runs, but I'm going to go with Bregman. Bregman loves the attention, and he loves the spotlight. And for that reason, I'm gonna go with the Astro. What about you, Alex?
I'll also take Bregman. I personally really don't like Jock Peterson. I don't know why. I'm just not a huge fan of him. He's got a lot of attitude when he hits home runs, which is obviously perfectly okay. You want to celebrate a bit, but he really hits one side. He hits right-hand pitching really well, and for some reason that just doesn't click well with me, that he only hits one side very well. Bregman's obviously a great all-around hitter. Obviously for the Home Run Derby it doesn't matter as much, but I still think Bregman takes. And now we're going to the other side of the bracket. Obviously it's an 8-person bracket, and this one is quite the interesting matchup. Josh Bell versus Ronald Acuna Jr. These guys are absolute studs. Who do you have winning this matchup?
I'm gonna go with the hottest bat, maybe arguably in baseball. I'm gonna go with Josh Bell. He's been lighting it up there in Pittsburgh. I don't know how many RBIs he's got now. I mean, he's probably hovering around 70 RBIs. I think he's leading the league actually in RBIs. He's been doing fantastic. He also hits the ball an absolute mile. I do like Acuna, good young player there in Atlanta, but
Bell's got 84 RBIs.
Sorry, pardon me. He's got 84 RBIs.
That's bizarre.
And he's a switch hitter too, which is quite interesting. Alex, where you go?
Believe it or not, we did not discuss this, before we did this podcast, but I'm also gonna go with Bell because, I mean, Acuna's he's a great player and he's on my fantasy team, so I'm a big fan of him. But for me, Bell's he's got tons of power. Obviously, Acuna does too, but I think it's just Bell's better for the home run derby. And this is, I think, the one place where we might disagree, actually. This is our last matchup for this first round. It's Pete Alonso, obviously rookie New York Mets stud, one of the only things going right for them right now, and Carlos Santana from the hometown Indians. Who do you have in this one?
I'm going to go with, maybe surprisingly, I'm going to go with Carlos Santana.
That's what I was going to say.
Not a huge fan of Pistol Pete there. Maybe because he is a Met and people talking about how he might be, he might be a better hitter than Aaron Judge. But I'm gonna go with Carlos Santana. Just he's big as a bear, and he can hit the ball quite far. I'm not gonna lie, quite a bit of bias there. Kind of tired of these Mets fans talking Pete Alonso up. Fantastic player. He is a fantastic rookie, and I think he's gonna have a great career in the MLB. But I'll show the AL some love here, and I'll go with Santana.
I will too, because not actually really with much bias, because as I'm a Red Sox fan, I really like the Mets. I root for them as we both live around New York, so the Mets are kind of a hometown team, and they're almost like a second team that I can root for. But Carlos Santana, as you said, big boy, and he's got a beautiful swing, and he just destroys the ball. Really doesn't get credit for just being an all-around great player. He is. Came back from Philadelphia, and he's produced like a monster that he is. And so we both have Santana. Ironic, and this is kind of crazy, but we actually did not have to discuss it at all because we're going to move quickly to the second round before we finish up. And on this side of the bracket, who do you have? Vlad Guerrero versus Alex Bregman.
I'm going to go with Vlad. I'm going to stick with Vlad. We've talked about him, just proven hitter. I'm going to go with him over Bregman.
Okay, and I'm also going to take Vlad. I think that we both agree. I think Vlad's going to put on an absolute show.
Right.
He's got a ton of power. He may have, be one of the most powerful hitters out of this group, which is crazy for a rookie. And then on the other side, we have Josh Bell and Carlos Santana. Who do you got there?
I'm going to go with Josh Bell over Santana, and I'll take Josh Bell going to the finals.
I would also take Josh Bell. It would be kind of cool to see Santana win in his hometown, but I think I'm going to take Josh Bell. And I think I'm going to take Josh Bell again. Not that I think Vlad will put on a show, but I think Josh Bell is kind of, even though everyone knows he's a great player, he's got some insane power, and he's also a big man. And he's also hit 27 homers this year.
I think he's batting over 300 as well.
He's batting 307, which is absolutely bizarre. He's having a great season. So we just want to thank you guys. We're going to conclude here with another episode of J&A Sports Talk. We want to thank you guys for watching, and we want to remind you guys to like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you guys next week with episode 3.